The Veli system had been burning for 3 cycles. Two great empires, the Kelthari Dominion and the Morvac Collective, had thrown everything they had at each other over control of this small cluster of planets. Hundreds of ships floated in the darkness of space, their weapons charged, their crews tired but ready for more death. Admiral Vorath stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Eternal Blade. He was tall for a Kelthari, with blue-gray skin and 4 eyes that never seemed to blink. He watched the enemy fleet through the main viewing screen. The Morvac ships were ugly things, built for brute force rather than elegance. But they were dangerous, very dangerous. On the other side of the battlefield, Warlord Gren commanded from his own vessel, the Iron Fist. He was massive, covered in thick armor plates that grew naturally from his body. His species had evolved for war. They knew nothing else and wanted nothing else. This war was a gift to them. Between the two fleets, the shattered remains of a moon drifted slowly. It had been destroyed in the first month of fighting, its pieces now forming a deadly field of rocks and ice. Both sides used it as cover. Both sides had lost ships to it. Today was supposed to be different. Today, representatives from the Galactic Council had arrived to negotiate a temporary ceasefire. Observer Liz, a small being with silver skin and large dark eyes, sat in her shuttle between the two fleets. She had done this many times before. She had watched species kill each other over territory, resources, pride. It was always the same. She was about to open communications with both admirals when her console lit up with an incoming message. It was not from either fleet. It was a system-wide broadcast from the Galactic Transit Authority, the organization that tracked all ship movements through known space. The message was simple. It appeared on every screen, on every ship, in every language. Warning: a human warship has entered the WARZONE. All COMBATNTS are advised. Admiral Vorath read the message and laughed. He actually laughed out loud, something his crew had rarely seen. He turned to his second in command, a younger Kelthari named Torais. "Humans," Vorath said, shaking his head. "A single human ship. Do they even know where they are?" Torais checked his sensors. "Confirmed, Admiral. One vessel. It just exited hyperspace at the edge of the system. Configuration matches Earth Confederation military design. Warship class, they call it. The HSS Sovereign." "One ship," Vorath repeated. He found it amusing. The humans were a young species. They had only been traveling among the stars for a few hundred years. They were not members of any major alliance. They kept to themselves mostly, building colonies, trading when necessary, avoiding the great powers of the galaxy. On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren received the same message. His response was similar. He slammed his massive fist on his command chair and roared with laughter. "The little soft creatures want to play war," he bellowed. "One ship, they send one ship." His officers joined in the laughter. The Morvac had fought many species. They had conquered dozens of worlds. Humans were nothing to them, weak, small, fragile. Their bones broke easily. Their skin tore like paper. But Observer Liz did not laugh. She sat very still in her shuttle, her hands trembling slightly as she read the warning again. She knew something that neither admiral knew. She had access to classified files from the Galactic Council. She had read the reports from Orion's Gate. 3 years ago, a Kelthari patrol fleet had encountered a human colony ship in disputed territory. The patrol commander, young and eager to prove himself, had demanded the humans surrender their vessel. The humans refused. The commander opened fire. What happened next was not widely known. The council had buried the reports, but Liz had read them. The colony ship had no weapons, but it had sent a distress signal. Within 6 hours, 2 human warships arrived. Just 2. The Kelthari patrol fleet had 12 vessels. None of them survived. The human ships did not fight like other species. They did not maintain distance. They did not follow the elegant patterns of galactic warfare that had been refined over thousands of years. They charged directly into the enemy formation. They took hits that should have destroyed them, but they kept coming. They used weapons that were considered barbaric, kinetic impactors, nuclear devices, things that most civilized species had abandoned long ago. The reports described the human tactics as insane and suicidal, but the humans won. They always won. Liz opened a private channel to the incoming human ship. She needed to warn them, or perhaps she needed to warn the others. She was not sure anymore. The HSS Sovereign moved through space with a kind of quiet confidence. It was not a large ship by galactic standards, maybe 300 meters long, dark gray hull, no decorations, no elegant curves. It looked functional. It looked like a weapon. On the bridge of the Sovereign, Captain Kang Teek stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was 52 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face marked by old scars. He had served in the Earth Confederation Navy for 30 years. He had seen things that would break most people, but he was still here, still standing. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. Lieutenant Yuna sat at the weapons console, her fingers moving across the controls as she ran diagnostic checks. She was young, only 28, but she had already proven herself in 3 combat engagements. She never panicked. She never hesitated. Commander Park D stood at the tactical station, studying the sensor data. He was the captain's oldest friend. They had served together for 15 years. He knew how Teek thought, sometimes before Teek himself knew. 2 fleets, Park D said calmly. Approximately 300 Kelthari ships, maybe 320 Morvac. They have us surrounded on 3 sides. And the 4th side? Teek asked. The debris field from that destroyed moon. We could use it for cover if we need to retreat. Teek nodded, but said nothing about retreating. Chief Engineer Han Siok's voice came through the internal communicator. Captain, reactor is stable. All systems are at full power. We are ready for whatever you need. Thank you, Chief, Teek replied. At the communication station, Ensign Bora listened to the alien transmissions. She was the youngest member of the bridge crew, only 23, but she had a gift for languages. She could understand 17 alien dialects. Captain, she said, both fleets are talking about us on open channels. They are laughing. Teek allowed himself a small smile. Let them laugh. The console beeped with an incoming transmission. Bora checked the source. Sir, it is from the Galactic Council observer. She is requesting a private channel. Put her through. Observer Liz appeared on the screen. Her silver face was tight with worry. Captain Teek, I am Observer Liz from the Galactic Council. I must advise you to leave this system immediately. You are 1 ship against over 600. This is not a fight you can win. Teek looked at her for a long moment. Observer Liz, are you aware that there is a human colony ship crashed on Veli's IV? Liz blinked. Yes, I am aware. 40,000 civilians. They were caught in the crossfire when the war began. Then you understand why we cannot leave. Captain, please, I have read the reports. I know what your species is capable of, but this is different. This is 2 full war fleets. They will destroy you. Teek's expression did not change. Observer, I appreciate your concern, but those are our people down there. 40,000 men, women, and children who have been trapped for months while these 2 empires fight over their heads. We are not leaving without them. He straightened his uniform and looked directly into the camera. Open a channel to both fleets, he said to Bora. The young ensign's hands moved quickly. Channel open, sir. You are broadcasting to every ship in the system. Captain Kang Teek spoke clearly, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. This is Captain Kang Teek of the HSS Sovereign, Earth Confederation Navy. The Veli system is now under Earth Confederation protection. All military vessels from both the Kelthari Dominion and the Morvac Collective are ordered to withdraw immediately. You have 6 hours to comply. He paused for just a moment. "This is your only warning." Then he cut the transmission. The alien fleets received his message. Admiral Vorath and Warlord Gren both listened to the small human captain make his demands, and once again they laughed. 6 hours, they could wait 6 hours. And then they would show this human what real war looked like. The hours passed slowly on the HSS Sovereign. The crew worked in near silence, each person focused on their task. There was no panic, no fear, just quiet preparation for what was coming. Captain Kang Teek had ordered all non-essential personnel to rest. They would need their strength soon, but he himself did not rest. He stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars and the distant shapes of alien warships. Commander Park D found him there, staring into the darkness. "You should sleep," Park D said, "at least for an hour." Teek shook his head. "I slept on the way here, I am fine." Park D stood beside his old friend. They had known each other since the academy. They had fought side by side in more battles than either could count. They did not need to speak to understand each other. "The crew is ready," Park D said finally. "They know what we are facing. None of them asked to leave." "I did not expect them to. Yuna has been at her station for 4 hours straight. I told her to take a break. She refused." Teek smiled slightly. "She is stubborn." "She learned it from you." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment longer. Then Park D spoke again, his voice lower now. "Teek, I have to ask, do you really think we can do this? 600 ships, even for us, that is." "Impossible." Teek turned to look at his friend. "Do you remember the siege of New Manila?" Park D nodded. How could he forget? It was the battle that made Teek famous throughout the fleet. "We had 3 destroyers," Teek continued. "The enemy had over 100 ships. They told us to surrender. They said resistance was pointless. We held them off for 11 days until reinforcements arrived." "I remember, I was there." "Then you know that numbers do not always decide battles." Teek turned back to the window. "These aliens have never fought humans before. Not really. They have heard stories, maybe, but they do not understand what those stories mean. They think we are weak because we are small. They think we are primitive because we use kinetic weapons. They are wrong." Park D was quiet for a moment, then he nodded. "What are your orders?" "Gather the senior officers in the briefing room. It is time everyone understood what we are doing here." 30 minutes later, the senior staff of the Sovereign sat around a long table in the ship's main briefing room. Lieutenant Yuna was there, looking tired but alert. Chief Engineer Han Siak had come up from the engine room, wiping grease from his hands. Ensign Bora sat at the end of the table, a data pad in front of her showing translated alien communications. Captain Teek stood at the head of the table. Behind him, a large screen showed a map of the Veli's system. 3 months ago," he began, "the colony ship Horizon's Dream was traveling through this region of space. It was carrying 40,000 colonists to a new settlement on the outer rim. Families, children, workers looking for a better life." He touched a control, and the screen changed to show an image of a damaged ship lying in a rocky landscape. The war between the Kelthari and the Morvac broke out without warning. The Horizon's Dream was caught in the middle. Her engines were damaged by weapons fire from both sides. Neither fleet cared about civilian casualties. The captain managed to crash land on Veli's IV, the 4th planet in this system. He changed the image again. This time it showed a rocky, desert world with thin atmosphere. "The planet is barely habitable, thin air, extreme temperatures, limited water, but the colonists survived the crash. They have been living in the wreckage of their ship and in underground shelters for 3 months. They have sent distress signals every day, but no one came to help them." Han Siak leaned forward. "Why did it take us so long to get here?" "Politics," Teek replied. There was a hint of bitterness in his voice. Earth Command did not want to provoke either the Kelthari or the Morvac. They hoped the war would end quickly and our people could be rescued through diplomatic channels. They were wrong. The war has only gotten worse. A week ago, the colonists reported that ground forces from both sides have started landing on Veli's IV. Our people are running out of time. Yuna spoke up, so we are here to extract them. We are here to get them out safely. But first, we need to clear the space around the planet. That means dealing with both fleets. Bora looked up from her data pad. Captain, I have been monitoring enemy communications. They are not taking us seriously. Both admirals think this is a joke. They are planning to destroy us as soon as the 6 hours are up, possibly sooner. Good, Teak said. The young ensign blinked. Good, sir. If they underestimate us, they will make mistakes. That is exactly what we need. He turned to the tactical display and began pointing out positions. Here is what we know. The Kelthari fleet is more organized, better disciplined. Their ships are faster than ours, but their weapons are designed for long-range combat. They like to stay at distance and wear down their enemies. The Morvek are the opposite. They are aggressive. They prefer to close in and overwhelm with firepower. Their ships are slower but more heavily armed. Park D nodded. So the Kelthari will try to circle us and pick us apart from range. The Morvek will try to rush in and crush us with numbers. Exactly, which means we need to control the engagement. We need to choose when and where we fight. Hansiok raised a hand. Captain, the ship is in good shape, but we have limits. Our shields can take heavy punishment, but they will not hold forever against that many ships. Our weapons are powerful, but we can only fire in so many directions at once. I know, Chief. That is why we are not going to fight all of them at once. Teak pulled up another display, showing the debris field from the destroyed moon. This is our advantage. The debris field creates natural cover. It blocks sensors and weapons fire. Both fleets have been avoiding it because it is dangerous to navigate. But we are not like them. Our pilots can handle it. We will use the debris as a shield and draw the enemy in piece by piece. Yuna studied the tactical data. We could set up kill zones, draw small groups into the debris and destroy them before the main fleet can respond. That is the idea. We hit them hard and fast, then disappear before they can coordinate a response. Every ship we destroy is one less ship guarding the planet. Bora cleared her throat. Sir, I am receiving another transmission from Observer Liz. She is begging us to leave. She says she is trying to negotiate a safe passage for us. Teak shook his head. Tell her we appreciate her concern, but we are not going anywhere. He looked around the room at his crew. These were the people he trusted most in the universe. They had followed him into danger before. They would follow him again now. I am not going to lie to you, he said quietly. This will be the hardest fight any of us have ever faced. We are outnumbered over 600 to 1. Many people would say what we are doing is impossible. Maybe they are right. He paused, letting his words sink in. But down on that planet, there are 40,000 of our people, men and women and children who have been waiting for someone to come for them. They have been waiting for 3 months, watching alien armies fight over their heads, wondering if anyone even remembers they exist. His voice grew stronger. Well, we remember, and we are going to bring them home, every single one of them. That is not a hope, that is not a wish, that is a promise, and humans keep their promises. Hansiok stood up first. My engines will not fail you, Captain. Yuna nodded firmly. My weapons are ready. Park D placed his hand on Teak's shoulder. We are with you, all of us, until the end. Even young Bora straightened in her seat, her fear replaced by determination. I will keep communications open no matter what happens. Teak felt a warmth in his chest. Pride, gratitude, love for these people who were willing to follow him into the impossible. Then let us get to work. The clock is ticking. Outside the Sovereign, the alien fleets continued to wait. Admiral Voreth had ordered his ships to maintain position. He was not worried. 6 hours was nothing. His fleet had been fighting for months. A few more hours of waiting would not hurt them. On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren was less patient. He paced the deck of his ship, his heavy footsteps shaking the floor plates. He wanted to attack now. He wanted to crush the tiny human ship and show the galaxy that the Morvac feared nothing. But his advisors convinced him to wait. Let the deadline pass. Let the humans see that their threats meant nothing. Then they would destroy them. The 6 hours passed. The HSS Sovereign did not move. It did not run. It sat in space, a single dark shape against the distant stars. Admiral Vorath opened a channel to the human ship. He wanted to give them one last chance. It would make his victory feel more satisfying. "Human vessel," he said, "your deadline has passed. You have failed to enforce your demands. Will you surrender now, or will you die fighting like the primitive creatures you are?" Captain Kang Teek's face appeared on the screen. He looked calm, almost bored. "Admiral," he said, "I gave you a warning. You chose to ignore it. What happens next is your responsibility." Vorath felt a flash of anger. How dare this creature speak to him like that? "You are one ship," Vorath growled. "One ship against the combined might of 2 empires. This is not bravery. This is stupidity." Teek smiled. It was a cold smile. The kind of smile that made observer Liz feel a chill run down her spine as she watched from her shuttle. "Admiral," Teek said softly, "we are humans. Stupidity is what we do best." Then he cut the transmission. Warlord Gren did not wait for Vorath to give the order. He roared at his commanders to attack. The Morvac fleet surged forward, eager for blood. Vorath watched them go. Let the Morvac absorb the first casualties, he thought. Then his ships would finish whatever was left. On the Sovereign, Captain Teek watched the enemy fleet beginning to move. "Here they come," Park D said quietly. Teek nodded. He took a deep breath and spoke the words that humans had been saying before battle for thousands of years. "All hands battle stations. This is not a drill." The lights on the bridge dimmed to combat mode. Red emergency lighting cast shadows across the faces of the crew. The hum of the engines grew deeper as power was redirected to weapons and shields. Lieutenant Yuna's fingers hovered over her controls. "Weapons armed and ready, Captain." "Chief Han Siok, give me everything you have got." "You will have it, sir." Ensign Bora's voice was steady despite her pounding heart. "Broadcasting position to Earth Command. Reinforcements are approximately 14 hours away." 14 hours, an eternity in battle. Captain Kang Teek sat down in his command chair. He looked out at the approaching swarm of enemy ships. He thought about the people on the planet below. He thought about his crew. "Take us into the debris field," he ordered. "Let us show them how humans fight." The HSS Sovereign began to move, heading straight toward the cloud of shattered moon rocks. Behind it, hundreds of alien ships gave chase. The battle for Veles had begun. The Morvac cruisers were fast for their size. Warlord Gren had sent his best squadron, 12 heavy warships crewed by veteran warriors who had destroyed countless enemy vessels. They expected an easy kill. They expected the human ship to run. The Sovereign did not run. It turned and flew straight toward them. On the lead Morvac cruiser, the captain stared at his sensors in disbelief. No ship had ever charged at a Morvac squadron before. Every species in the galaxy knew to keep their distance from Morvac heavy weapons. This human captain was either insane or suicidal. Maybe both. "All ships open fire," the Morvac captain ordered. 12 cruisers unleashed their weapons at once. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness of space. Energy beams cut through the void. Missiles launched from 100 tubes. It was enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. The Sovereign should have been vaporized in seconds. Instead, it danced. Lieutenant Yuna watched her targeting computer track the incoming fire. At the same time, The ship's navigation system calculated thousands of possible evasion paths. On most ships, this would have been pointless. No living creature could react fast enough to dodge weapons fire in space. But the Sovereign was not piloted by hand. Its navigation AI worked in microseconds, making tiny adjustments to the ship's course faster than any organic mind could process. And the human crew had trained for exactly this kind of fight. The ship rolled and twisted, moving through gaps in the enemy fire that seemed impossibly small. Some shots still hit. The shields flared with each impact, absorbing energy that would have torn through unprotected hull. But the Sovereign kept coming. Captain Teak gripped the arms of his chair as G-forces pushed against his body. The inertial dampeners could only do so much. Any other species would have passed out by now. Their bodies were not built for this kind of stress, but humans were different. Humans had evolved on a planet with heavy gravity. Their muscles were dense. Their bones were strong. Their hearts could pump blood under conditions that would kill most aliens. "Range closing," Park D announced, his voice strained but steady. 5,000 kilometers, 4,003. "Hold fire," Teak ordered. Yuna looked at him with wide eyes. "Sir." "I said hold, wait for my command." The Morvac cruisers kept firing, but their confidence was beginning to crack. Why was the human ship not shooting back? Why was it getting so close? Morvac tactics assumed enemies would keep their distance. They had no protocols for fighting at close range. The Sovereign plunged into the Morvac formation like a knife through paper. Enemy ships scattered, trying to avoid collision. In their confusion, two cruisers nearly crashed into each other. "Now," Teak said calmly, "fire everything." Lieutenant Yuna pressed her controls. The Sovereign came alive with violence. Kinetic impactors launched from railguns at incredible speed. These were not elegant energy weapons. They were chunks of metal accelerated to a fraction of the speed of light. When they hit, they carried the force of small nuclear explosions. The first Morvac cruiser's shields held for exactly 1.2 seconds before collapsing. The impactor punched through the hull and out the other side, leaving a hole big enough to fly a shuttle through. Nuclear-tipped torpedoes followed. They spiraled toward their targets, their guidance systems locking on to enemy engine signatures. 3 cruisers tried to shoot them down. They destroyed some, but not enough. The torpedoes that got through detonated against their hulls with blinding white flashes. 4 Morvac cruisers were destroyed in the first 90 seconds of combat. On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren watched in shock. His best ships were dying to a single human vessel. This was not possible. This could not be happening. "Send more ships," he roared. "Destroy them." But his remaining cruisers were in chaos. The Sovereign was moving too fast, staying too close. If they fired their heavy weapons now, they risked hitting each other. The human ship seemed to know this. It stayed in the middle of their formation, using them as shields against their own allies. Chief Engineer Han Siok's voice came through the intercom. "Shields at 60%. We took some hits, but nothing critical." "Understood, Chief. Keep us running." "Always, Captain." The Sovereign spun and fired again. Another Morvac cruiser exploded as a kinetic round tore through its reactor. The blast caught a nearby ship, damaging its engines. That ship began to drift, helpless. One of the Morvac captains, desperate and enraged, ordered his ship to ram the Sovereign. It was a tactic of last resort, used only when all hope was lost. He accelerated toward the human ship, ready to die if it meant taking them with him. Han Siok saw it coming. "Captain, collision course bearing 37. Teak did not hesitate. "Full power to port thrusters, emergency roll." The Sovereign tilted hard to the left. The G-forces were brutal. Bora cried out and grabbed her console. Even Yuna, who never showed fear, gritted her teeth against the pressure. The Morvac cruiser shot past them, missing by less than 50 meters. But it could not stop. Another Morvac ship was directly in its path. The collision was spectacular. Both ships crumpled together in a tangle of metal and fire. Secondary explosions tore them apart from the inside. 8 Morvac cruisers were gone in less than 3 minutes. The remaining 4 broke formation and fled. They had never retreated from battle before. The Morvac did not retreat, but they ran from the Sovereign like prey running from a predator. On the bridge of the Eternal Blade, Admiral Voreth watched the sensor data in stunned silence. His second-in-command, Torres, was pale with fear. Admiral Torres whispered, "How is this possible?" Voreth did not answer. He was replaying the battle footage, trying to understand what he had just witnessed. The human ship had moved in ways that should not be possible. It had absorbed damage that should have destroyed it. It had used weapons that were crude and primitive, yet devastatingly effective. And its crew, the G-forces they had endured during those maneuvers would have killed any Kalthari instantly. The humans had not even slowed down. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Voreth felt something he had never felt before. Fear. On her shuttle, observer Liz was trembling. She had seen the battle. She had seen 12 heavy cruisers destroyed by a single human warship. She finally understood why the Council had buried those reports from Orion's Gate. Humans were not like other species. They did not fight like other species. They had spent their entire evolutionary history fighting each other, surviving on a planet that tried to kill them in 1,000 different ways. They had developed weapons that civilized species considered too brutal to use. They had trained their bodies to endure conditions that would destroy anyone else. And they never, ever gave up. Liz opened a channel to the Galactic Council headquarters. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely operate the controls. "This is Observer Liz in the Veli system. Priority transmission. The situation has changed. The human ship has engaged Morvac forces. 12 cruisers destroyed. Repeat, 12 cruisers destroyed. The human vessel sustained minimal damage. Request immediate consultation. Both fleets may be in danger." The response came back within minutes. The Council was watching. Everyone was watching. On the Sovereign, the crew allowed themselves a moment of relief. They had won the first engagement, but the battle was far from over. "Damage report," Teak ordered. "Shields are recharging," Han Siak reported. "Minor hull damage to Deck 7. No casualties. We are still combat effective." Enemy response. Park D checked the tactical display. "The Morvac are pulling back to regroup. But Captain, the Kalthari fleet is moving. They are not attacking us directly. They are positioning themselves to cut off our escape route." Teak nodded. He had expected this. Voreth was smarter than Gren. He would not make the same mistakes. "And Gren?" "He is." "Wait." Park D leaned closer to his screen. "He is communicating with the Kalthari. They are coordinating. They are forming a joint attack force." Bora confirmed it. "I am intercepting their transmissions. They have agreed to a temporary alliance. They are combining their fleets to destroy us." Yuna laughed bitterly. "So we made them so scared they stopped fighting each other and started working together. Not sure if that is good or bad." "It means we have their attention," Teak said. "That is what we needed." He stood up and walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, hundreds of alien ships were beginning to move into new formations. They were surrounding the Sovereign, cutting off every possible escape route. 2 empires, over 600 warships, all of them focused on one human vessel. "Park D," Teak said quietly. "How many ships can they bring to bear at once without getting in each other's way?" Park D ran the calculations. "Maybe 200, more than that, and they risk friendly fire." "Then we just have to survive 200 ships at a time." Teak turned to face his crew. "All hands, prepare for sustained combat. This is going to be a long fight." Yuna began loading fresh ammunition into the weapons systems. Han Siak routed emergency power to the shields. Bora continued monitoring enemy communications, looking for any advantage they could use. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Captain Kang Teek thought about what he was going to say when they came for him, because they were coming. He could see them on the sensors, hundreds of points of light closing in from all directions. He thought about Earth. He thought about the people on the planet below. He thought about every human who had ever fought against impossible odds and won. "You know," he said to no one in particular, "in the old days on Earth there was a famous battle. 300 soldiers held a mountain pass against an army of hundreds of thousands. They all died, but they bought time for their people to prepare, to fight back, to win." Park D looked at him. "Is that what we are doing, buying time?" Teek smiled. "No, those 300 died. We are not going to die. We are going to win." He sat back down in his chair. "Take us back into the debris field. Let us show them what one human ship can really do." The Sovereign turned and accelerated toward the field of shattered moon rocks. Behind it, a combined fleet of two empires gave chase. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Voreth had never seen anything like it. His ships were dying, and he could not stop it. The combined fleet had chased the human vessel into the debris field. That had been a mistake. In the open space between the stars, numbers mattered. 600 ships should have crushed one, but in the debris field the rules changed. The Sovereign moved through the floating rocks and ice like a ghost. It appeared from behind asteroids, fired devastating volleys, and vanished before the alien ships could respond. The debris blocked sensors. It scattered weapons fire. It turned the Kelthari's advantage in long-range combat into a weakness. And the Morvac were dying in even greater numbers. Gren's warriors were brave, but bravery meant nothing when you could not find your enemy. They flew into the debris field in hunting packs, confident in their strength. They flew out in pieces if they flew out at all. Voreth watched another cluster of ships disappear from his tactical display. That was 23 more vessels lost. The combined fleet had lost over 50 ships now, 50 ships against one. "Recall all units," Voreth ordered. His voice was cold, but there was a tremor beneath it. "Pull them back to open space. We need to reorganize." On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren was raging. He had destroyed worlds. He had crushed entire species. He would not be humiliated by a single human ship. "No retreat," he bellowed at his communications officer. "Send in more ships, all of them. Flood that debris field with fire until nothing survives." "Warlord," his second-in-command said carefully, "if we send all our ships in at once, they will hit each other. The debris is too thick for coordinated fire." Gren grabbed the officer by the throat and lifted him off the ground. "Then they will die killing humans. That is an honorable death." He dropped the officer and turned to the viewing screen. Somewhere in that field of rocks, the human ship was waiting, mocking him, making him look weak in front of his warriors. "I will tear that ship apart with my own hands," Gren growled. On the Sovereign, Captain Teek watched the enemy ships retreating to open space. He allowed himself a small nod of satisfaction. The first phase was complete. "Status report," he said. "Shields at 42%, Han Siok replied. His voice was tired but steady. "We have taken multiple hits. Hull damage on decks 3, 7, and 12. No breaches yet, but we are getting close." "Weapons." Yuna checked her systems. "Kinetic impactors are down to 30%. We have enough torpedoes for maybe 2 more engagements. After that, we are fighting with beam weapons only." "Communications." Bora looked up from her console. "I am still tracking enemy transmissions. They are arguing with each other. The Kelthari want to fall back and develop new tactics. The Morvac want to attack with everything they have." "Good, keep them arguing. The longer they fight each other, the longer we survive." Park D studied the tactical display. "Captain, they are regrouping in open space. They will come at us again soon, and this time they will not make the same mistakes. They will surround the debris field and wait us out. We cannot stay in here forever." Teak nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. The debris field had given them an advantage, but it was temporary. Eventually, the enemy would adapt. They always did. How long until Earth reinforcements arrive? 10 hours, maybe 9 if they push their engines. 10 hours. They had been fighting for 4 hours already. 10 more seemed like an eternity. "Then we need to change our approach," Teak said. He stood up and walked to the main screen. "We have been hitting them hard, but we have not broken them. They still think they can win. We need to show them they cannot." "How?" Yuna asked. Teak was silent for a moment. Then he turned to Bora. "Ensign, open a channel to all ships in the system. Maximum broadcast power. I want every alien in this fleet to hear what I am about to say." Bora looked uncertain, but she followed orders. "Channel open, sir." Captain Kang Teak stood straight and faced the camera. When he spoke, his voice carried across the void to every Kelthari and Morvac ship in the Veli's system. "This is Captain Kang Teak of the HSS Sovereign. I want to tell you a story." On the Eternal Blade, Admiral Vorath frowned. What was this human doing? On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren listened with growing anger. On her shuttle, Observer Liz leaned forward, her heart's beating faster. Teak continued speaking. "My species comes from a small planet called Earth. It is not a special place. Average gravity, average temperature, nothing remarkable, but it tried to kill us. Every day our world tried to kill us with storms, earthquakes, diseases, predators, ice ages, and floods. We survived anyway." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Then we started killing each other. For thousands of years, humans fought humans. We fought over land. We fought over resources. We fought over ideas. We fought because fighting was the only thing we knew how to do well. We built weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We invented poisons that could kill millions. We created machines of war that would make your nightmares look like pleasant dreams." In the background, tactical data appeared on screens throughout both alien fleets. Images from Earth's history, wars, explosions, the terrible efficiency of human violence. "We burned entire continents in our wars. We split atoms and used them as bombs. We created diseases as weapons. We built ships that could circle the globe and launch missiles that could end civilization. And we used them. We used all of them against each other." Admiral Vorath felt a chill run down his spine. He had studied human history in preparation for this region of space, but seeing it presented like this, as a threat, was different. "You think you know war," Teak continued. "You think because you have conquered a few planets, destroyed a few fleets, you understand what war means. You do not. You fight with rules. You fight with honor. You fight expecting your enemies to behave in predictable ways." His voice grew harder. "Humans have no rules. We have no honor in war. We fight to survive. We fight until there is nothing left of our enemies. We do not stop. We do not surrender. We adapt to anything you throw at us, and we throw something worse back." He stepped closer to the camera. "Right now, you are looking at one ship, one human warship, and that one ship has already destroyed over 50 of your vessels. You have 600 ships, and you cannot stop us. What do you think will happen when more ships arrive? What do you think will happen when Earth sends a full battle fleet?" On the Morvac flagship, warriors exchanged uneasy glances. They had never heard an enemy speak like this. "I have weapons on this ship that I have not used yet. Weapons that my government considers too cruel for war. Biological agents that will melt your bodies from the inside. Radiation bombs that will make your ships tombs of slowly dying crew. We invented these things to use against each other. We know exactly how horrible they are, and we will use them again if we must." This was a bluff. Teak did not have such weapons on the Sovereign, but the aliens did not know that. "You have one chance to survive this. Withdraw from this system. Leave now and you will live. Stay and we will destroy you. Not because we want to, not because we enjoy it, but because that is what humans do when someone threatens our people. We burn everything that threatens us until there is nothing left to threaten us ever again. He let the silence stretch for a long moment. This is not a negotiation. This is not a request. This is a statement of fact. You cannot win this fight. You can only choose how many of your ships die before you accept that truth. He cut the transmission. The alien fleets were silent. On ship after ship, crews stared at blank screens, trying to process what they had just heard. On the Eternal Blade, Admiral Voreth sat motionless in his command chair. His mind was racing. The human captain was bluffing. He had to be bluffing. No civilized species would actually use biological weapons in space combat. But what if he was not bluffing? The reports from Orion's Gate had described human tactics as insane. What if they really were willing to do anything to win? On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren was experiencing something he had never felt before: doubt. His warriors were the strongest in the galaxy. They feared nothing. But this human, this small, soft creature, spoke of horrors that even Morvac nightmares could not match. And the worst part was, Gren believed him. Commander Park D watched the enemy fleet on his sensors. They were not moving. They were not attacking. They were just sitting there. "It is working," he said quietly. "They are hesitating." Teak nodded. Fear is a weapon too, sometimes the most powerful weapon of all. Yuna looked at him with a mix of respect and concern. "Captain, you do not really have biological weapons, do you?" "No, but they do not know that." He allowed himself a thin smile. "And after what we have done to them today, they have no idea what else we might be capable of." Han Siok's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, I have good news and bad news." "Go ahead, Chief." "Good news. I have stabilized the reactor and rerouted power to rebuild our shields. We are back up to 60%. And the bad news? The bad news is that I had to shut down half the secondary systems to do it. We have no hot water, limited artificial gravity on the lower decks, and the food synthesizers are offline. Hope you were not hungry." Despite the tension, several crew members laughed. "We will survive, Chief. Keep doing what you do." Bora suddenly sat up straight. "Captain, I am detecting movement. The Morvac fleet is. They are breaking formation." Park D confirmed it. "She is right. Warlord Gren's ships are pulling back. They are heading for the hyperspace jump point." Teak stood up. "They are leaving." "Not all of them, but a significant portion. Maybe a third of the Morvac fleet is retreating from the system." On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren watched in fury as ship after ship reported engine malfunctions, power failures, and other sudden emergencies that required them to withdraw from combat. His warriors were deserting. His own warriors, who had never run from anything, were running from one human ship. He raged, he threatened, he ordered executions, but he could not stop them. Fear had taken root in the Morvac fleet, and fear was contagious. Admiral Voreth observed the Morvac retreat with cold calculation. If Gren's warriors were breaking, his own forces might follow. The alliance was already unstable. One more push might shatter it completely. But that push would have to come from the humans. On the Sovereign, Captain Teak watched the enemy fleet with new hope. They had hurt the aliens physically. Now they had hurt them psychologically. The battle was not over, but the tide was turning. "Ensign Bora," he said, "send a message to the remaining ships. Tell them to look at the Morvac running away. Tell them to think about what happens next. Tell them that the choice is still theirs." He sat back down in his chair. "And then get some rest. All of you take shifts, eat something. We still have 10 hours until reinforcements arrive." The crew began rotating out for breaks, but Teak stayed at his post, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, Two alien admirals were making decisions that would determine the fate of 40,000 human lives. Teak hoped they would make the right choice. But if they did not, he would be ready. The battle resumed 4 hours before the reinforcements were scheduled to arrive. Admiral Vorath had made his decision. He could not let fear win. If he retreated now, his career was over. His reputation would be destroyed. The Kelthari Dominion would remember him as the admiral who ran from one human ship. So he attacked. 200 Kelthari warships advanced in a carefully organized formation. They had learned from the Morvac mistakes. They stayed out of the debris field. They coordinated their fire. They used their numerical advantage wisely. The Sovereign had no choice but to fight in open space. "All stations report ready," Park D announced. His face was grim. They all knew this would be the hardest part. Captain Teak looked around his bridge. His crew was exhausted. They had been fighting for hours. Han Siak had not slept in over a day. Yuna's hands were cramping from constant weapons control. Bora's voice was hoarse from endless communications. But they were still there, still fighting. "Remember what we are fighting for," Teak said quietly. 40,000 people down on that planet. Mothers, fathers, children, they are counting on us. He straightened in his chair. "All ahead full, let us end this." The Sovereign surged forward to meet the Kelthari fleet. What followed was 4 hours of the most intense combat the crew had ever experienced. The ship took hit after hit. Shields failed and were restored. Hull breaches opened and were sealed. Fires broke out and were extinguished. Han Siak worked miracles in the engine room. At one point, a power conduit exploded near him, sending shrapnel through his left arm. He wrapped the wound with emergency bandages and kept working. He did not have time to stop. Yuna fired until her weapons ran dry, then switched to backup systems, then to emergency reserves. When even those were exhausted, she manually rerouted power from non-essential systems to keep the beam weapons firing. Bora coordinated communications through damaged equipment, sometimes holding broken wires together with her bare hands to maintain signal integrity. Her console sparked and smoked, but she refused to leave her post. Park D became the captain's eyes, tracking hundreds of enemy movements and finding gaps in their formation that the Sovereign could exploit. His tactical genius saved them more than once. And through it all, Captain Kang Teak remained calm. He gave orders. He adjusted tactics. He never showed fear, even when the ship shook so violently that he was thrown from his chair. They destroyed 37 more Kelthari ships, but the aliens kept coming. "Shields are gone," Han Siak shouted through the intercom. "I cannot bring them back. We are taking direct hits." A plasma bolt tore through the outer hull near the bridge. Emergency doors slammed shut. Atmosphere vented into space for a terrifying moment before repair. Drones sealed the breach. "Casualties on Deck 4, Bora reported, her voice shaking. "Medical teams are responding." Teak gripped his armrests. They were running out of time. The ship was falling apart around them. Then Bora's console lit up with a new signal. "Captain," she cried, "I am detecting hyperspace signatures, multiple contacts emerging at the system edge." Park D checked his sensors. His exhausted face broke into a smile. "It is them," he said. "Earth reinforcements, 20 warships led by the S Victory." On the main screen, new shapes appeared against the stars. Human ships, beautiful, deadly, and right on time. The lead vessel broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Song from Earth Confederation Navy. HSS Sovereign, we have your back. All hostile vessels withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Admiral Vorath saw the new ships arrive and knew it was over. One human warship had been devastating. 21 was an army. But more than that, he had seen what one ship could do. He had watched his fleet torn apart by tactics he did not understand, weapons he had underestimated, and a crew that simply would not die. If this was what one human ship could do, what would 21 do? He did not want to find out. All ships, Voreth ordered, his voice heavy with defeat, cease fire. Begin withdrawal to hyperspace jump points. On the Iron Fist, Warlord Gren watched the Kelthari retreat beginning. Half of his own fleet had already fled. The rest were demoralized, their confidence shattered. For a long moment, Gren considered continuing the fight alone. His pride demanded it. His honor demanded it. But even Gren knew when a battle was lost. "Fall back," he growled. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. All ships returned to Morvek space. The alien fleets began to withdraw. Hundreds of ships turned away from the Veles system, their engines flaring as they made for the jump points. The war over Veles was ending, not with a treaty between the two empires, but with both sides running from humanity's wrath. On the Sovereign, the crew watched the enemy retreat in exhausted disbelief. "They are leaving," Una whispered. "They are actually leaving." Park D confirmed it. "All hostile vessels are withdrawing. No ships remain in attack formation." Teak let out a long breath. His hands were shaking. He had not realized how tense he had been until now. "Casualties?" he asked. Bora checked her reports. 18 wounded, 3 critical, but— She paused, blinking back tears. "No deaths, Captain. We lost no one." 18 wounded. On any other day, that would be a tragedy. But they had faced over 600 enemy ships. They had fought for nearly 12 hours, and every member of the crew was still alive. "Chief Han Siok," Teak said into the intercom, "status of the engines." There was a pause. Then Han Siok's voice came through, tired but proud. "Engines are— well, they should not be working at all, but they are. I will keep them running until we can get to a proper shipyard." "Good work, Chief. Get that arm looked at." "Already on my way to medical, sir. But I wanted to hear the good news first." The human reinforcement fleet closed in around the Sovereign. Admiral Song's face appeared on the viewscreen. She was a stern woman with gray hair and the eyes of someone who had seen too many battles. "Captain Teak," she said, "you look like hell." Teak managed a tired smile. "Thank you, Admiral. We have had a long day." "I can see that. We will handle things from here. Get your ship and crew to safety. You have earned it." "Not yet, Admiral. There are 40,000 civilians on the planet's surface. We came here to rescue them. I would like to see that through." Admiral Song nodded with respect. "Then let us do that together." The evacuation of Veles IV took 3 days. Shuttles went down to the planet's surface again and again, bringing up colonists who had been trapped for months. Many of them were sick. Many were injured. All of them were alive. Captain Kang Teak went down to the planet personally to meet them. He walked through the ruined colony ship, the Horizon's Dream, where 40,000 people had lived in fear and hope for 3 long months. A little girl, maybe 6 years old, ran up to him and grabbed his hand. "Are you the captain?" she asked, her eyes wide. "The one who scared away the bad aliens?" Teak knelt down to her level. "I am Captain Teak. What is your name?" "Jisoo," she said. "My mom said you were coming. She said humans never leave other humans behind." "Your mother was right," Teak smiled at the girl. "Let us get you home." One by one, the colonists were brought up to the waiting ships. Families reunited. Tears were shed. For the first time in months, they were safe. Observer Liz watched the evacuation from her shuttle. She had stayed in the system, documenting everything that had happened. Her report to the Galactic Council would change how the galaxy viewed humanity forever. She had written many reports over her long career, but this one would be different. She began typing. "Veles System Incident, Final Report, Classification Urgent." Summary: a single human warship, the HSS Sovereign, engaged combined forces from the Kelthari Dominion and Morvac Collective. Estimated enemy strength was over 600 vessels. The human ship sustained significant damage but was not destroyed. Enemy losses exceeded 70 ships, with additional losses from friendly fire and desertion. Analysis: human military capabilities have been significantly underestimated by all galactic powers. Their ships are faster and more maneuverable than previously believed. Their weapons, while primitive in design, are extremely effective. Their crews can survive physical conditions that would kill members of most other species. However, the most significant factor in this engagement was psychological. The human captain used psychological warfare techniques that caused widespread demoralization in enemy forces. His speech detailing human military history created fear that spread through both fleets like a disease. Recommendation: under no circumstances should any species provoke humanity into a full-scale war. If one ship nearly broke two empires, a fleet would be devastating. The Galactic Council should immediately begin diplomatic outreach to Earth with the goal of establishing permanent peace. She paused, considering her next words carefully. Personal observation: humans are not like us. They do not think like us. They do not fight like us. They survived their own violence and emerged stronger. They carry thousands of years of warfare in their blood and bones. They are capable of terrible cruelty and incredible sacrifice. But they are also capable of great compassion. Captain Teak and his crew risked everything to save strangers. They faced impossible odds not for glory or conquest, but because 40,000 people needed help. This is the truth about humanity. They are the most dangerous species in the galaxy, and the most loyal. If you are their enemy, they will destroy you. If you are their friend, they will die for you. The galaxy would be wise to choose friendship. She sent the report and sat back in her chair. Outside her window, she could see the human ships gathering, their holds full of rescued colonists. Far away, in the depths of space, two wounded empires licked their wounds and remembered the day everything changed. The Kelthari and Morvac had been at war for 3 cycles. That war was over now. Not because either side had won, but because both sides had lost to something they had never expected. A single human warship. One ship. Captain Kang Teak stood on the observation deck of the Sovereign as it prepared to leave the Veli's system. His ship was battered and scarred, held together by emergency repairs and the sheer determination of Chief Han Siok. Park D joined him at the window. "That was close," Park D said. "Yes." "Do you think they will come back, the Kelthari or the Morvac?" Teak shook his head. "Not to Velis and not to any human world, I think, not after today. The galaxy will know what happened here." "Good, let them know, let them remember." Teak turned to his old friend. "Humans do not start wars, Park D, we finish them." The engines hummed as the Sovereign began to move. Around it, 20 other human warships formed a protective convoy, shepherding the civilian transports toward home. Behind them, the Veli system grew smaller in the distance. It was just a few planets around an ordinary star, nothing special. But it would be remembered. It would be remembered as the place where 2 great empires learned to fear a young species from a small blue planet. The place where one human ship changed everything. The place where Earth showed the galaxy what humanity truly was. Not conquerors, not destroyers. Survivors and protectors of their own. The Sovereign jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew home. Earth endured. It always did.